The next thing that we're going to take a look at is the Pythagorean theorem. And when we started with Pythagorean theorem way back in September, again, we quickly reviewed that the Pythagorean theorem in general was equal to a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay? And that when we figured this out, again, Pythagorean theorem only ever works for right angle triangles. Okay, so for right angle triangles, for right triangles, okay, and only for side length. Okay, and so what we can do is we can identify what these three things are. Okay, so we've got side A, we've got side B, and we also have side C. Side C is the hypotenuse. Okay, so C equals the hypotenuse. Okay, so the hypotenuse is always, nope, spelling that wrong. Okay, the hypotenuse is always the longest side on a right angle triangle, and that's what we end up using Pythagorean theorem for. Okay, so it's important to note that we only use Pythagorean theorem for a right angle triangle and when we are looking for a side. Okay, and C is always the longest of all of the sides. So, in order to figure out a question like this, there's two types. Okay, so we could be looking for either side A or side B. So, side A or B. So let's do an example of that. Let's say we've got a right angle triangle. Okay, and I tell you that one side is 20, the other side is 10, and one side is x. Okay, so we can use Pythagorean theorem here because we've got a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay, in this case, we can label this as a, b, c. Okay, we know that c is the side across from the right angle. The key here is always, always, always that we have to label the C side correctly. Doesn't matter which side you call A or which side you call C, or sorry, which side you call A or which side you call B, but you always, always, always have to label the C side correctly as being the hypotenuse. So now we're just going to substitute in values here. Instead of A, I'm going to put in x squared plus 10 squared is equal to 20 squared. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually expand this out. Okay, so I've got x squared plus 100, because 10 squared is 100, and 20 squared is 400. Okay, I'm going to move that 100 over to the other side. So minus 100. So it's equal to 400 minus 100. Okay, and so this is going to leave me with x squared is equal to 300. Okay, and then the opposite operation of squaring something is square rooting it. So I'm going to do x squared is equal to 300. And I'm going to square root both sides. So x is going to equal approximately 17.3 units. Okay, So that's how you use Pythagorean theorem to solve for either a side A or a side B. We can also use Pythagorean theorem to solve uh, for a side, oops, try that again. We can use it to solve for side C. Okay, so let's do another example. Let's say in this case we've got, again, a right angle triangle. In this case, that's my x value. This one's going to be 4, and this one will be 3. Okay, so I know I'm looking for an unknown side, and I've got a right angle triangle, so that means that I can use Pythagorean theorem. So I've got a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay. I'm going to call this side A, this side B, and this side C. Okay, because again, my C side is across from the right angle, therefore it's the longest side. So I'm going to plug in my values. So it's going to give me 4 squared plus 3 squared is equal to x squared. That gives me 16 plus 9 is equal to x squared. That gives me 25 is equal to x squared. So I need to do the square root. Oops, we go back. Do 25 and x squared. Again, I do the square root of both of those things. So my hypotenuse is going to equal 5 units long. Okay, so we can use Pythagorean theorem to solve for an unknown side length of a right angle triangle when you know the other two side lengths.